completely different. When
So
I
let me
gave
make
up
sure
my
that
job in the sales profession, that is when I
yeah,
realized that when you chase money, that's all you're ever going to do. You're going to chase money. You're never going to keep it. So
yeah.
being out of that profession was the best thing that I could have ever done for myself.
So
So now I
so
understand myself, and
Natasha,
that's the difference.
it's hard for me to have an interactive conversation because you're so good at speaking.
Well, let me let you into a secret. Up until I started doing this work, whenever I sent out so many CVs, I was leaving jobs, I was having hot dinners. I was in that many jobs, so my CV went out to so many places. And at the very end, when you say your interests, the only thing that I would ever think of putting on there was talking. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
that's no good. I've got to at least be good at something. But I wasn't, I couldn't play an instrument. I couldn't sing. I couldn't dance. I wasn't creative, or so I thought. And it wasn't until I started doing this profession, I was like, hey,
Yeah.
no wonder that I am such a good talker, such a good speaker, because this is my gift.
Uh-huh.
Speaking is my talent. Speaking is my gift. I have my own radio show. Speaking to my clients, speaking to people is some. I love talking. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it comes very easy for you. So let me make sure that I understand, and I want to make sure the listeners also get this. So what I understand is that you made money your God. Is that
Yeah,
accurate? Uh-huh.
yeah,
And you grew up in a family that was poor, and you probably, although you didn't say this, but you probably made a promise to yourself that I am never gonna be like my parents.
yep. Got it in
and,
one.
and and guess what happened?
Yeah,
You recreated that, right?
yeah,
So
absolutely. I
you
absolutely.
ran after money, but you were poor all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell our listeners, when was it when you finally said, this has cost me enough, I had enough, I'm going to stop looking outside and start looking within? When was that?
That was about in time terms. That was probably about 2.5 years ago. When it's been very much an unfolding, a natural sort of progression. I made
Mm-hmm.
the first decision 5 years ago, actually, when I had because I was constantly chasing the money and going into all these different sales jobs. I actually landed a very very good job in my late 20s, where I earned so much money for my age. I was
Mm-hmm.
rolling in it. I bought a house. I paid off all my debts, all my student loans. I was living the high life. I ate in all the top restaurants, bought all the designer clothes. It was pretty cool. And
Boy,
then
can I
five
relate.
years ago, I'd just come out of a very unhealthy relationship. My I had lost all sense of self, all sense of self-esteem. I had finished working. I was under so much stress because of this guy. I'd finished working. We were supposed to move to another country. Um, I had no money because I'd whittled it away. And I literally had nothing. I was also sick with the chicken pox, which at 30 years old isn't very nice. I lost so much weight in about 10 days. And I did the only thing that I knew how to do, which was to call my mom and ask for help. And she put me on the next plane home. I was living in Spain at the time. She put me on the next plane home, and I was a broken woman. I thought that there was absolutely no way out. there was no light at the end of the tunnel. It was pitch black. And my mom, she did a great job at really sort of, you know, building me back up again. And it was at that point that I made a decision, and this was the decision that changed everything. The decision was that history was no longer going to repeat itself, and I would rather be single and on my own than be in a second-rate relationship that made me miserable and unhappy. And I would rather never be in a relationship again as long as I could make myself happy. And in that moment, the actions that I started to take, which were, you know, really taking a look at what I needed and what I wanted, and that's when things really started to change for me. And that's when I met my partner that I'm with right now, my fiance, and that was the first step. The second step was going through the real personal growth work, learning about the law of attraction and EFT. And
okay, Natasha, hold on. Before you go into that, I want to make sure that I understand. This is really important. What you're sharing is absolutely incredible. And I want to acknowledge you for being willing to be vulnerable on the air, because this show is going into 5 different networks live, and it's going to be downloaded by thousands of people and listened to. So I really want to make sure that you're being acknowledged, that you're willing to be vulnerable enough to share this. I mean, this is a big deal. Oprah doesn't do this on her show. She likes other people to be vulnerable, but not her.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's huge, and I want to make sure that I also understand. And what I want to make sure I understand is, for you to make a change within you, you have to give some things up.
Yeah.
And what I heard is you gave up, you called it second-rate relationships, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm listening to you I'm connecting with you, and I've been connecting with you for quite some time. I mean listening between the words that you're not saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So besides giving up second-rate relationships, what else did you have to give up?
I gave up the old me, and that was probably, at the time I didn't realize it, but yeah, I gave up trying to make things right when I didn't know how to write them.